Hey guys, this is Tom Box. Thanks for tuning in to MST.TV and welcome to the damage report for September 2023 ban list. We're going to go over some of the decks that were the winners, the losers, as well as the tier list potential. Now this time around, since the list isn't as big, we have to focus more on the stuff that was not hit, as well as a larger list of tier list potential. Normally I don't really want to cover too much because it's just way too many decks, and it seems like that's the direction Konami has been going into it, which is way more open-ended formats, way more viable decks, and then we'll see how this one plays out. Now I know some of you guys only come here for the tier list potential. Feel free to skip ahead if you don't want to care too much about the damage report, but there are some lasting effects thanks to things not getting hit, and I'm going to make a prediction right now is that the January ban list coming out, or the December one, the one coming after this one, is going to be an absolute slaughter fest, because they're going to be pushing for a new age of product, and they do this more or less once a year, where there's one ban list that just kind of shifts an entire format, and then the rest of the list they don't really touch too much on most of the decks. That's my prediction. Make sure you guys hit that like button, hit subscribe, ding that notification button, and let's jump into this one. Starting with the actual list, so I kind of refresh your memories, we have one ban card, which is Cash Tier Arise. So it's dictated the format for a very long time. For the limited, we have BYSTIAL, Magnamut, and Chaos Space. I think this is just suffering from like winner's curse. You won the recent worlds, and like most decks that win worlds, they often get touched. And this just so happens that Poly won with, BYSTIAL Dragon Link, so Magnamut and Chaos Space won. Now, Chaos Space hasn't really gone to one ever, so this is going to be a really neat thing to see. Now, as for the semi-limits, there's nothing, and as for things going back to 3, we have SALAMANGREAT, Gazelle, and we have Herald of the Orange Light. Well, Herald of the Orange Light without Eva, it doesn't seem too bad. Gazelle, I think, is going to make a huge impact. I'm not too sure. I'm going to also include SALAMANGREAT in the top tier potential, but we'll see when we get there. So yeah, that's basically it for a list. What a tiny list, but let's go take a look at the winners and losers. We have winners, we have losers. For our losers, we only have 2, so let's cover them first. We have BYSTIAL Magnamut going to 1, and of course the Arise Heart getting completely banned. Graveyards are a lot safer now, especially if you play light or dark decks. But the Arise Heart being gone is probably the bigger thing, because that's the Macrocosmos. Permanent banishing is really bad, but for the BYSTIAL Magnamut, it affects a lot of people's side deck, right? So it's not just a matchup, but more or less the side deck is going to be affected here, where people are going to go from 3 of the Magnamuts and 1 Druid Worm to 3 Druid Worm to 1 Magnamut. It was also going to be a part of a meta shift anyway, because Druid Worm is very good against Unchained. Now let's take a look at the winners. We have Shifter. Still going to be around. There's 3 decks that will still play it. We have Flaunderies, Exorcister, and Kashtira. That's still going to be a thing. And then Dimensional Barrier. People thought that D-Barrier was going to take a hit. It's so oppressive. And no, it's still here. In fact, a lot of decks that did not get hit kind of warranted the D-Barrier was going to stay around. I think a lot of things, when you take a hit on a ban list, it needs to be a collaborative hit just so that it's fair, and you can't just take away something and leave something alone. So they just said, we're just not going to touch it. And there's Gazelle to 3, beyond full power SALAMANGREAT. This deck is going to be ridiculously consistent. Pearlies, guess what? You guys will have 3 Sleepy Memory still. This card is a card that everyone thought that was going to probably go to 1, but now you get your draw power. I think this has a lot to do with the timing of the release and the timing of Worlds, which is why it didn't get touched. More on that in a second. Labyrinth, you still have your EV. Drytron, because of the 2 losers, you get to be on here because you were affected the most by both of those cards. And you also get, triple Herald of the Orange Light. Sunseed, Lowside, Rickus on Avalon, you have your Jasmine still. Like, if you're playing this deck, you get to play for another year, unless of course the format doesn't allow you to play it, but more or less you're gonna go completely unpunished. If you're a master of the deck, you're probably gonna still do really well. And then there's Brand Diffusion. It's now an ulti. I don't think they're gonna touch it. I think that's just the current phase of how ultis work in OTS packs. Like, they just don't touch those. Just look at Fenrir. Fenrir's also another winner here. Okay, but one note I want to put out here is, like, if there is a set release right before Worlds and there's no events, I post that particular point, and then afterwards they start doing events, I think the longevity or the shelf life of the product, they don't start ticking until after, which is why we get a ban list like this one. But the ban list never really stops, so they're going to give us a ban list anyway, and so it gives us a little bit more time to actually play with the product. That's kind of my take from this, because it does seem like it aligns with like business practices of letting your product actually play out before getting rid of them. Damage report number 1, Cash Tira, Arise Heart. We hardly knew ye. I'm just kidding. We definitely felt you. The moment you came out, you devastated the format. In terms of deck losses here, Arise Heart is gone, which will also take away Infinitrack Goliath, Garura, and the Entis. Anything that's related to the Cash Tira rerouting from the extra deck to banish to graveyard, those cards are gone because you don't have Arise Heart anymore. You can't reroute it, so there's no advantage of playing those cards in your extra deck, and that ultimately kind of weakens the Pot of Prosperity in the deck. But you know, pot is pot. It's just going to be very strong anyway. In terms of deck repairs, let me give you the concept here. It's going to get rerouted in different directions. You can turn this into a going second aggro deck. The aggro power of this deck wasn't taken away. You still have the Theosis, you still have the field spell, and you can still generate a ton of damage regardless. So that part never got taken away. Fenrir is still a functional engine for other people to play, or you can go into a more control-esque board, either by using Xyz, or you can, you know, supplement it with another engine like the Adventure engine. So in terms of deck repairs, you can play like N number 67, Harmonizer, Gradale. I think Graveyard Manipulation is going to be very viable anyway. Dweller or Baguska, you can definitely put that into the deck. This requires you to play Arsenal Falcon into Tribute Lanius into Raider's Wing, and therefore you can either go into the Nightmare so you can book something down, or you can make Dweller to deal with Unchained. That's a line that's possible. That's just theory crafting here. X-Parley Happiness might be another monster you might play. It's the rank 7, not the rank 2, because it can negate the entire field worth of monsters. Yeah, you guys, it does have an effect. Just because you don't play it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Arsenal Falcon on the Adventure package. So this is kind of what we're looking at. So in terms of like aggression and power, like any deck or any board that has the Arise Heart is gone. Arise Heart Pass is gone. Arise Heart Fenrir Shangri-Ira, that's gone. There, of course, there's no zone locking anymore because we already got rid of Diablosis. Can you imagine Diablosis came back? Like, I can, because you just can't get that level of banish anymore. The deck itself is a lot more fragile. The Cash Tira was always fragile, but before you just need to kind of play Protect the Castle, you know, Forbidden Lance, your Arise Heart, and it feels very good. You can't do that now, and no one's under Macrocosmos. Would you shift into playing Macrocosmos in the deck just to upset people, like put them into a zone where it does feel like Arise are still here? That's completely up to you. I think it might be worth it to try like D-Fissure to help you block around, say, playing against Droll and stuff like that, and actually keeping people on their toes. It might be worth it. I don't know. It might be their version of a Floodgate. And if there's a way to play Floodgate Cash Tira, I think it's definitely worth the attempt. But more or less, this deck is going to be a lot less popular. Shifter is going to still be around, but there's going to be a lot less of it because people are not going to play this deck as much. Unless Fluandarees gets really popular, then we're still stuck with Shifter because it really depends on those decks. Fenrir Engine is going to be splashed everywhere. Just be careful. If you can find ways to maintain control and negate, because if you eat, say, an evenly match, it's going to suck super hard because this time around, there's really not much way to get a recovery here, so just be very, very careful about, you know, how to keep your boards alive. So BYSTIAL Dragon Link report number 2, more or less the same deck, just a little less consistent. I mean, opening Magnuma, being able to use Magnuma as a follow-up every single time felt really, really good. Now, not so much, but more or less you're kind of playing a worlds list, a weird world list, because Worlds, you only had one BYSTIAL Lubellion, but now you have 3 BYSTIAL Lubellion, but with a trade-off of Chaos Space going to 1. So there's definitely a lot more focus onto the BYSTIAL side when it comes to this list. And with Magnemite going to 1, it's not going to make that big of a difference, guys. We watched Poly play at the World Stage. He knows that if you land one Magnemite and you cycle that one Magnemite with Branded Regain, it just feels like it's the same card. And you can still focus most of your attention on Druid Swarm nowadays anyway, because you have to adapt to the current format, which is Unchained. Unchained is going to be very annoying. Now, in terms of deck fixes, you're taking away 2 Magnemite and 2 Chaos Space. Well, what do you repair it with? A lot of BYSTIAL Dragon Link decks, they're above the 44 mark, so just taking out the cards and you can just literally play the same deck. But if you want to maintain the ratios, then you're going to have to shove in some cards. Generic staples. Go with the current format board breakers, like Change of Heart. You can also play Triple Attack, probably the Thrust. Not that you're not already playing it, but you just shove in staples. Book of Moon, Change of Heart, Thrust, Mind Control. I don't know. Just play whatever that you need for the current format and you'll be fine. Combo losses, you lost no combos. They're all the same. Nothing changed in that regard. Consistency-wise, you do lose a little bit of search on your Chaos Levy, Black and White Dragon, Chaos Emperor. Sure, those are gone. Gained, well, you didn't really gain anything. You just lost something. So Yeah, the final remark here is that it just looks like this is a different version of the World's version without the Max C, but less Magnamut opens for more chances for lighter dark decks to play with their graveyard. Report number 3 is Salad. This deck is going to be really wild. There's no deck losses here. You're just gaining 2 Salamangreat Gazelle. So no losses, strict gain, which means this deck is at full power with 3 Gazelle, 3 Salamangreat of Fire, which makes for a full combo very, very easily, very consistent. You have 2 different lines you can play. If you guys haven't kept up with Salamangreat, the lines to open with the Raging Phoenix. Yes, Raging Phoenix is a card that they play. Oh, why don't they just play Access Code? Because Raging Phoenix lets you dig for any Salamangreat card and add it to your hand if you decide to over summon it, like Rebirth Summon, whatever you call it. When you just use the one material and just summon it on top of itself, yeah, that thing. Yeah, you get to search for any Salamangreat card. Compared with Gazelle, Gazelle can dump one. And then you can use Sunlight Wolf to add that card back, and then you can use Raging Phoenix to add another one, which gives you a ridiculous amount of consistency. And you can also play Decode Talker Heat Soul, which gives you even more draws. And if you want to talk about maintaining card advantage, you want to play a deck that's super rewarding in terms of maintaining card advantage over your opponent and maintaining control, then Salamangreat is for you. But just be careful, Nibiru. Nibiru is very popular in the format right now, which is also main deck worthy at the moment. Then you're going to have to be very careful about this, because, you know, the combo of Salamangreat always ends on a Nibiru. Yeah, that was like one of the jokes back then, but if you guys didn't get it, well, it went over your heads. I think this deck being ridiculously consistent is going to definitely put it on the map, because I think Salamangreat Rage targeting your own, you know, Raging Phoenix has been like reincarnate summon. That's the word, reincarnate summon. That's going to be able to pop a lot of cards. I'm not sure how well that's going to fare against Unchained in particular, because Unchained loves to have their cards popped, and if you pop their back row, yeah, they're going to benefit. But this is something that you need to know how to adapt via matchup knowledge. And then there's also Access Code Update Jammer. I mean, that particular combo has always been the bane of a lot of people, whether it be in the TCG or Master Duel. So we're going to see how that's going to apply. Now, before we continue, guys, check out MSTmerch.com. We have launched our pink sleeves, our rose pink. This is from the Carbon series. They feel like PC whites, but they have the color of pink. A lot of you guys had the opportunity to try at YCS Vancouver, and you guys loved it. You guys are just making them fly off the shelf. So check out MSTmerch.com. We still have our over sleeves. We have our foil sleeves, Ulti Instinct, Ulti Ego. I know you guys love that one. They're still in stock, but they are running out, so pick them up while you still can. We're going to see if we can get a restock, but no promises here, but check it out. We also have mats, box dividers, help you sort your collection. We have all sorts of TCG essentials, and I want to make sure you guys have all your bases covered. So check it out, MSTmerch.com. Really appreciate the support, and I know you guys love our stuff, so you know what, thanks for the support, guys. Let's continue with the ban list damage report. So we have top tier potential, high tier potential, and hidden potential. Hidden potential is on a separate page because I decided to include a few more decks, but if there's things that you think I'm missing, you can leave it down in the comments section as per usual. Top tier means their expectation to perform is at the highest tier. They're most likely to expect to make top cut. And then there is high tier potential. They are going to perform, but there's not going to be as many of them. They're not expected to perform as well. This is all about the expectation to hit top cut in the format. So this is how I'm judging it by, rather than specifically listing a tier 1, 2, or 3. Even a hidden potential that could win an entire event, and then it would probably shift things around in terms of its actual tier position. So these are just their potential to perform and their expectation. So Unchained, based off of the recent YCSs, yeah, they took the most dominant spot with the most amount of representation. They belong here. Pearly is the same thing. They're full power with 3 Sleepy Memory. Chimera Branded, another very interesting deck. Unchained and Chimera Branded were 2 decks that did not exist in the OCG meta, and here they are in TCG. So it just goes to show how different the formats can be without Max C, and we're definitely taking advantage of that. And then there's also Labyrinth, still full power. BYSTIAL Dragon Link, still more or less going to be doing BYSTIAL Dragon Link things. Dark World is another deck I decided to include here because of the lack of Magnamut for one, and also Kashtira not being a thing. There's no Arise Heart. Before, Dark World's first play always had to be, can I get rid of the Arise Heart? Otherwise, I can't play. That gamble is no longer there, giving them a lot more consistency. But now we're going to have to worry about Droll, considering a lot of decks do get killed by Droll. And then we have Sinful, Spoils, Rescue Ace. I am including a little bit of Age of Overlord here just because it's going to be relevant, and I'm going to be including them and giving this deck, which is one of their choke points, not being able to get into Hydrant. The thing that gives them Hydrant, it's a free special summon, it's a searchable card, it's just another engine. It's going to be really, really consistent, and there's going to be crazy ways that people change up how they play this deck. Then there's Branded Despia. We're going to high tier potential. Full power, you can still Gimmick Puppet lock, you still have Branded Fusion, you have the entire deck. It's the same deck, except there's no Rise Heart in the format. Sprite managed to get a top. I think the Canfam was the one that got a top recently at YCS Vancouver. Runic for higher Sprite. I didn't see them do too well, but I guess they existed in, YCS Brazil. And then there's Fluanderies. It's positioned itself in a really nice spot because Unchained really doesn't do too much against them, and Chimera Branded loses on all the timing against them because everything's on summon trigger, and they don't have special summon monsters and they're win. But luckily, Chimera Branded can utilize those wins and use Super Poly and get rid of some of their cards. That is actually an option. Recast on Avalon, nothing got touched. Vanquish Soul, you're about to get a fire, a monster in the deck, which is going to be great. Scareclaw Vanadium, you can even shove in more Cash Chira cards in there and, continue with Hot Red because Hot Red did not take an L. Infernobles, that deck also took a top at YCS Vancouver. I think people are going to pick it up a little bit more and give it a bit more chance. I hope there is a profile out there online. Exorcister, another deck that can play D-Shifter. It's going to be very interesting. If you're as strong as Steven Santoli, probably an option, I think. If I'm missing any high tier potential deck, leave it down in the comment section. But hey, we got more decks to cover, so check out those decks before you comment. The hidden potential decks. Starting off with Cash Chira. Definitely lowered the expectation a lot, especially with a Rise Heart. I think we are so reliant on a Rise Heart that we completely forgot about it. But this could be the same scenario as before, where Pearly lost the Delicious Memory consistency from 100% success rate to only a 33%, but then they adjusted and pivoted, and now they're successful as well. So I'm seeing Cash Chira has a potential to do the same thing. It is a very, very strong deck, even without the Arise Heart. The OTK potential of just summoning out Unicorn, you can still die from just them summoning out Unicorn. They can generate the damage. It's not that hard for them. Sword Soul, still sticking around. Marine Cess, let's not underestimate them because they are around and they are very powerful, and they have, stuck some tops here and there. Rev Synchron decks, again, this is mainly because a Rise Heart is gone. A Rise Heart just did so much. Like it just suppressed so many decks. Now that the graveyard is kind of a little bit more open, we can definitely see Rev Synchron kind of make a comeback. I'm still an ABC fan, so that's not going to change me. We have also Centurion, Horus. I don't know how they're going to perform here in TCG. I think they're going to perform better because there's no Max C for one thing, but I really don't know how that's going to fly in TCG based off of what the decks we have here. Are we going to get full counter because we can't maintain the Pharaoh's sarcophagus on the field? Is that going to be a problem? Who knows? Drytron, also hidden potential. I think with Ammo Factor Pain and all those other things kind of lined up for it with the Herald of Orange at 3, I think this deck is going to be pretty wild to play. I want to kind of jump back onto Drytron personally. That's actually one of my personal picks right now. Tearlaments, again, another deck. Blackwing. That's right, Blackwing made this list. Why? Because Blackwing kind of went close to being undefeated during Swiss rounds at YCS Vancouver, and everyone was just cheering on to the Blackwing. I think Blackwing, just spamming out a full Armor Masters wins games. What do you want it to do? There's also Gold Pride, of course, one of the crazy OTK decks that you're able to do, especially with Punks. Plunder Patrol still sticking around. And the red deck, that's right, the red deck. I tried out this red deck, and I just couldn't believe that you could play through so much stuff. I thought that, hey, it's a structure deck, maybe I'll give it a try. And then I started to kind of play test it a little bit. Crimson Gaia is a ridiculously consistent card. This deck is so consistent. It's got 9 starters. 9 ways to start your combo, always ends up the same. You can hit a Nibiru without even normal summoning, and then you just build more or less the same board. You can revive some of the boss monsters that got killed by Nibiru by banishing them with Obsessive Uvoa Loop. And I think there's even potential to use the deck with Assault Synchron and kind of use the second effect of Assault Synchron to bring back more and more of your boss monsters. So don't underestimate this deck. This deck will be very annoying, especially, again, no Rise Heart. Trap Tricks, probably still around. And then one of my other top picks for hidden potential is SALAMANGREAT. Again, a lot of it has to do with consistency. Consistency always has, won games in the past, and I don't think it's going to be any different. But is there any deck that I miss? Are there any hidden spices that you also want to add in here? Well, leave it down in the comment section. Maybe I'll, kind of rate it, because I can't really talk about everything here. There's just way too many decks. And again, we're kind of going back into a format where there's just so much to kind of talk about. But in any case, it's got to be the top 7 decks, the top tier potentials that you should really be worried about at events in terms of like representation and frequency. You better prepare your side deck for those decks. With that said, let's jump back to this list so we can keep on looking at the Unchained, the Pearly, the Chimera Branded, the Labyrinth, the Dragon Link, the Dark World, and the Sinful Spoil Rescue Aces. These are all the high tier potential stuff. Just be very careful. Expect them at upcoming events. And with that said, if you guys enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button, hit subscribe, ding that notification bell. This is a starting point for all of us. And don't forget to check out MST.TV. The pink sleeves have launched. You guys love it, and I'm really glad for your support. Yeah, and don't forget to check out the Ulti Instinct, Ulti Ego. I know you guys wanted those at the event, but I'm too low on supply to kind of throw them around. I really want to give you guys the sample, try out the pinks. It feels like, well, what does it feel like? It feels like PC white, but with a creamy pink color. I don't know how to describe it. I'm very tired. It's 4 a.m. But thank you guys for the support. I really love you guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.